Hey guys, welcome to another tutorial. Sorry I haven't posted in a while. I've had a busy few months, as I'm sure you guys have too. But getting right back on track, and we're going to get right into it. I think what we need to look at first is trying to fix our weapon sway, because in the last tutorial we actually disabled it while we were doing the aiming in. So we're actually going to change the whole position. So we're going to change it to world position instead of local. So we're going to have to change the scale a little bit. So in the hierarchy, I'm going to go to my weapon so I can see the values of the weapon script. And inside here, instead of a sway scale of 400, let's change it to 5,000. We may need to tweak that a little, but we'll see how that goes. I'm just going to open up the weapon controller script. Also, just a quick one, I've switched to the new Visual Studio, although I don't think that changes anything. And also my Unity version is now 2020.3.25, although I don't think that should make much of a difference either. But that's really the only things that have changed. So let's quickly go and fix our sway. So if you remember, we commented it out here just because we used the sway object for our aiming in. So instead, we're going to take the sway position, which we create down here. So I'm just going to copy that. We're going to go up to where our aiming in is inside the calculate aiming in. And you see here where we change the weapon sway object position. You see we changing the actual position instead of the local position this time. So what we're going to do is we're just going to tack that onto the end. So we're just going to say weapon sway position plus sway position. And let's save that and let's go ahead and see what that looks like. If you haven't done the sway scale, you'll see it probably goes all over the screen. But let's just quickly see how this looks. Okay, so we got our sway back and we should be able to aim in, which is perfect. Now the only thing we need to do now is add in all of our effectors for when we aim in. So obviously we want less sway, less weapon sway. Don't really want it to sway on the Z, I think that is. And also we want to affect the movement speed and possibly affect the sensitivity. Although we also want to look at holding breath later on, so like holding shift to affect the weapon sway. But we can come back to that. That's not a problem. Let's go back into our weapon script and let's start affecting our positions and stuff. So we can start off with the actual weapon sway itself. So here where we say weapon sway amount. So there's two ways we can do this. You can either add another aiming in sway amount, or you can just do what I'm about to do, which I'm just going to basically half everything when we're aiming in. So with settings.sway amount, I'm just going to get rid of that for now. I'm going to add in two brackets because we're going to do another separate calculation. And I'm basically just going to check if we are aiming in. So I'm going to use our is aiming in variable, followed by a question mark, and then the value if we are aiming in, which will be settings.sway amount divided by 2, and then colons, and then the value if we're not aiming in, which would just be the settings.sway amount, like that. So we can copy that and paste it on the X as well because they're exactly the same. So with that simple change, let's just go in and see how our sway is affected. We'll go in here. Okay, so there is definitely less sway when we're aiming in. I still want there to be sway, just because, you know, I feel like in real life there would definitely be sway. I don't want it to stick to the screen. The other thing I want to do is I want to remove the Z if we're aiming in. So again, I'm going to cut that, and we're just going to say is aiming in. If we are, we want that to be 0. If we are, we want it to be 0, and if we aren't, we just want the original value, which is our target weapon rotation.y. Let's go check that that works as well. So what it was doing, it was adding a little bit of a rotation. Well, it seemed like a rotation. So if I looked left, it would actually look left and down. So it's okay from this position because it looks natural because the camera isn't right on the weapon. Yep, and that looks like it worked, which is perfect. So you can see it looks a little bit more natural now, left and right, up and down. And then we still have our Z here, which kind of rotates the weapon a little bit, if you can see that. Cool. All right, so the next is the actual sway that we just fixed. So that's quite simple as well. So if we go down here, we can get rid of this line now. We don't need that in the commented. Let's quickly have a look here. So it's basically our sway scale that we want to mess with. I'm going to cut that out, put that in brackets. and we're going to start playing around with it here. So we'll do our is aiming in again. You got to remember this is a divide, so we actually want to increase this value instead of decrease it. So for now, I'll just have weapon scale, weapon scale. So what we want to do to this if we're aiming in, so I'm going to actually times it by 2. Remember, you don't want to divide by 2 because we need to increase the value. So I'm going to times that by 2, and let's just take a look and see what that looks like. That should be good. Let's go ahead, hit play, aim in. And it is a little less, but I think I want it to be even less than that. So let's try it times by 3. Again, you can easily just create a variable. I'm just, I think I want it to be the same for all my weapons because it's actually relating to the character. That's a bit better. You've got to remember we're doing this without the holding breath for now. This is what it's going to be like aiming in normally. What I'm going to be doing for the breath is sort of like a Tarkov mechanic. So when you first aim in, it's nice and steady, but the longer you aim in, the more of the breath you use, and then when you're out of breath, it starts swaying like this. So that's perfect for what I need. Obviously, keep playing around with the values until you find the value you need, but we'll play with that a little bit later on. All right, so the next step is to actually affect our movement for our camera and our movement for our player. So let's go onto the player and actually open up the character controller script. So the bits we're going to be modifying is inside the view/movement and the calculate view and the calculate movement. The movement's quite simple. As you can see, we already have these speed effectors in play, which basically just going to make another one of. So let's go into our player settings, which is in our SCR_models. From Visual Studio, just go ahead and click on one of the values and hit F12. Values, one of the properties. And then once we're inside, you see we have our speed effectors here. We kind of just want to add another one for our aiming in speed effector. So we'll just duplicate that one and we'll just call it aiming speed effector. So nice and simple. Let's go back to our character controller. And then we'll just add another else if. So I'm going to duplicate this one. And then instead of player starts, let's just do our is aiming in. Boom. And also we want to change our prone speed effector to our aiming speed effector. Let's go ahead and check that worked. Hopefully it should be nice and simple. So inside player settings, speed effector, aiming speed effector. So I want it to be 0.5. Let's see what that feels like. So it should be half the speed. So we're walking, and then when we aim in, you see it makes us go a lot slower, which is exactly what we want. Cool. All right, and then the next thing is to do the actual sensitivity, because the sensitivity is exactly the same, whereas we want to add a little bit more accuracy on. So this is quite simple. I want to put in a variable just because obviously I want the player to be able to change it. So similarly, I'm going to click on one of the properties, hit F12, or you can just go to your SCR models and player settings model. And then just down here, we want to create another public float. And what this is going to be is our view aiming sensitivity. I think I spelled that right. Sensitivity effector. So basically what this is it's going to be, let's just get rid of view. We don't need that there. Aim and sensitivity effector. So basically we're going to use this to affect this sensitivity. So all we really need to do is kind of similar to what we did on the weapon controller. So on the character rotation.y, we're going to add another 2 brackets, and we're going to actually see if we are sprinting. That is sprinting question mark, and then we'll add in our view sensitivity. So if we are sprinting, we want our view sensitivity to actually be multiplied by our player settings. Dot aiming sensitivity effector. So not the speed, the sensitivity. And that should be okay. All right, and then when we're not sprinting, it just uses the normal sensitivity. And we want to do the exact same thing for the Y. So I'm going to cut that, add in some brackets, check if we are sprinting. And then if we are sprinting, we want to do that, multiply by player, settings, dot, aiming sensitivity effector, and default value if not. Okay, all right, so let's go ahead and see what that feels like, but firstly make sure we add a value to that, otherwise when we aim in it's not going to do anything. Okay, so it should be near the top. Okay, so let's try 0.8, which should be 80% of 20. See what that, we might need to do a bit more just to make sure it is actually working. Let's actually change it to like 0.2, so it should be very slow. And nothing happens. Alright, so let's have a look. Let's have a look and see what's going on. So it looks like I used is sprinting instead of is aiming in. So that would actually, we do want to affect the aiming sensitivity, to be fair, when we're sprinting. Okay, but let's just fix that and check again. We'll leave on 0.2 just so we can see it work. Hit play. Okay, well that made it way too slow. Okay, so let's try it now, 0.8. Let's see what that looks like. I only want it to slow down a little. And that does slow down a bit. Okay, so it's basically just to give the player a little bit more accuracy. I think 0.6 will be too much. Actually, 0.6 is quite good. I'm going to leave it as 0.6. And what we might actually do is let's just change our weapon sway a little bit more. So I'm going to go back into the weapon controller. And up here where we have sway amount divided by 2, I'm actually going to change that to 3. I just want it to be a little bit more sway. Let's see what that looks like. I'm debating whether to leave the movement sway, just because obviously I do want there to be a consequence for moving while aiming in, although I might need to do a different walking speed. Oh, there we go. That's a lot less sway, so that's quite nice, especially with the sensitivity change and the movement change. Actually feels like our player is actually reacting to it now. Cool, so that's perfect. Yeah, no, let's do that movement sway. So it's basically down here, and we kind of want to do exactly the same as we've done up here. So I'm going to cut that value, add in some brackets, check if we're aiming in, not sprinting. And if we are, we're going to do that divided by 3, otherwise the original value. And I'm going to do the exact same thing for movement Y. So brackets is aiming in, question mark, paste, and divided by 3, colons, and then the original value, which I think I just broke. There we go. Okay, so let's check our movement sway is affected. So this is basically when we're moving left, you know how the weapon tilts to the left and stuff. Okay, so it's heavily reduced. Okay, so it's more kind of like stuck to the screen. The only thing we can really look at in the future is the movement animation, like the walking animation, but actually it's quite realistic because it, I don't know, we'll have a look later on and see how it feels. But for now, that's the aiming finished. So in the next tutorial, we're actually going to look at leaning. Once leaning is done, we're actually going to look at making our weapon shoot. So stay tuned. Subscribe if you haven't already. I'm sorry for the delay, but we're going to get back on track now. So thank you for hanging in there for those of you that have. Also, I've been doing a few giveaways on my Discord. Going to be doing a few more. Just wanted to thank all of you for hitting over 300. I want to say followers. What do you call them? Just Discordians on my Discord server users, I guess. So that's probably the term, Dennis. So yeah, if you get stuck, obviously feel free to join the Discord. I can give you a hand. So yeah, thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.